how to really heal your inner child during the most chaotic and stressful moments. Travel being one of them. When we are talking about attuning to the needs of your kid at the season and stage, really understanding and knowing what you are also unlearning in the process. For myself and even Ajit as parents, a lot of it is reparenting ourselves. When we get to that place where there is a trigger that comes up, that is our mirror, and they are really our mirror. During this trip, we were literally running late. I'm usually the last one out of the house. I'm also the one getting all of the snacks and all of the drinks. It's like mom brain. And I've noticed my son, because he's obviously fed off of my energy during this trip, I would say something as like little as, oh my gosh, we're going to be late. And so I would say things like, we are going to be late. Because, okay, to rush them. And just even in that, now he's learned to say, Mom, are we going to be late? Oh my gosh. And then he'll start to have some anxiety around it because I've caught it, right? You fine tune and you pay attention to the subtleties of what they are mirroring in you. And then we were almost going to miss our train. We were in Lisbon going to Porto. Ari asked, Mom, are we going to be late? And that was when I just kneeled down to him and I said, honey, no, we take as much time as we want. And it just clicked with me. And I said, all right, I know he may make a meaning of every time or may think that every time mama is doing something that it's going to spike either anxiety in him or he's going to start having this association. So I just sat with him and I spoke to him. I'm like, you know what? We're going to take as much time as we want because not everything is time sensitive and that we can take our time. If you catch yourself where the first part is that awareness, right? The first part is really recognizing that, ooh, can I do better? Can this situation, could this have gone better? And how can I do things a little differently? How can we then repair that and not pass that generational trauma down to our kids? And that we try certain things. It's a constant evolution. Attune to the needs of your kids at this season and stage. Hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy. Today, I want to get into how to navigate emotional turbulence while you are on the road and how to raise and or parent resilient children and what that means for healing your inner child. So whether you have children or not, whether you're a parent, whether you are a mama, whether you are an aspiring parent, aspiring mama or parent or dad to be, or maybe you are on your own healing journey, this is the episode to dive into. And I'm going to talk about how we as adults tolerate the circumstances, setbacks, challenges, failures, and what is present to us if you have children, how to shift that, how to change that so that we can be with our inner child in the process. And I want to start by reading one of my amazing That's Like Now What affirmation action cards. I know the sucky moments will not last forever. Even when my emotions tell me otherwise, I'm never stuck and I'm in constant flow. And so we this year had a trip to Europe. Annually, we have our events there. And I shared a little bit earlier about heading to, this year we went to Sweden. And of course, we had our big annual event for Mind Valley Coach in Estonia. And then we had a 10-day trip planned into Portugal. And this would be the first time I would say, as the kids are now 3 and 5, where they kind of understand a few things, right? They're not full, they're both potty trained. And, you know, we have a lot less challenges. If you want to listen to my other solo cast on what to pack and how to travel with children under 10, I will link that one in the show notes because I think that's a very privy one. But I want to really speak into the highs and the lows of what happens and really understanding what we've witnessed even with our own kids growing up, and they're 3 and 5. And it was different this time. It was different this time because they were able to really get a sense and know, okay, what does mama and dada do? And I was getting interviewed for my book, That Suck Now What? And my kids were able to sit. It was a live interview, and some people were there was an audience, and I believe they've seen me speak in different ways, like stage talks and things like that, but not in such an intimate setting where they were literally in the front row. And I mean, I had to really make my talking points for a child because now I know that they're there, and I know my 5-year-old can understand things. So I wasn't going to drop an F bomb, and I had to be more mindful. And that was the first time I'm like, oh, okay, I have to really think before I speak because they pick up on all of the things that now I'm realizing, especially in this trip, because we were in intimate quarters. Some of the rooms, obviously, it's Europe, so everything's super tiny, and you're just pretty much in everybody's space, I loved every second of it. My husband, on the other hand, he loves his space. And so that was obviously our differences in travel. But were there meltdowns? Absolutely. Did we have to pick our battles? Absolutely. What did we learn, and what was actually coming up in the process? And this is what I want to bring up today: how to attune to the needs of your child at each season and stage of their lives. Because obviously, what worked for them when they were a baby, like my daughter 2 years ago when she was 1, obviously is not going to work for her now. She's 3, teenager. It's happening. It's a lot of the feels. She wants to be in control. She wants to have her own autonomy. I totally understand it. I have way more patience with her now than I did with my son. And, future mamas, this is just kind of what happens in parenthood, right? With each one, you think you have a little bit more patience, and you know a little bit more, right? You've been around the block. The second thing I want to bring up is how to notice your children's personalities and how to really foster their interests. And this was the first time I played around with homeschooling because I'm like, okay, we are going to a few different countries. They didn't come to us. They didn't come to Sweden with us, but while they've been to Estonia before, I feel like there is a lot more that they can learn about the region, about maps, about the countries, etc. Most people don't know even where Estonia is and the capital and, all of the other nuances that come up. I'm like, how can I make this a fun an engaging trip? I have a lot of mamas, some of you who watch this either on YouTube or DM me and ask me, are you homeschooling? What's your thoughts on homeschooling? What's your thoughts on regular schooling, unschooling, etc.? I thought, hey, why not give it a go? I don't have an opinion either which way. Right now, my kids are one of them goes to a Montessori, but student led. And that's a very different approach here in Austin, and we love it. And my other child, she goes to a Reggio Emilia, and that was great for them at the time. And we tried Ari going to a Montessori school. He needed just more activity, more play, more running around. He had so much energy. And now that he's older, the school that he has now, it's part Montessori, part active learning, part, getting your hands into all of the things that really interest you. So it's kind of an unschooling approach. But I was curious about this. And the last thing that I want to bring up is how to really heal your inner child during the most chaotic and stressful moments. Travel being one of them. And so I'm going to spill some tea on that. And now, the first thing, when we are talking about attuning to the needs of your kid, your child at the season and stage, really understanding and knowing what you are also unlearning in the process. And I think for myself and even Ajit as parents, a lot of it is reparenting ourselves. I remember, and this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, That Suck Now What? While it's not just for moms, it's not just for parents, it's to be able to really embrace the highs and the lows in parenting, and that yes, you're going to screw things up, you're going to f it up, it's not going to be perfect, you're going to scream at them, you're going to revert sometimes back to what your parents did. But now the thing is we know better. And the thing is we know every single time when we get to that place where there is a trigger that comes up, that is our mirror, and they are really our mirror. I just during this trip, we were literally running late, and I do run late. This is my flaw. I do run late. I'm usually the last one out of the house. I'm also the one getting all of the snacks and all of the drinks and all of the water bottles and packing the bags and making sure we didn't forget anything. And also, I'm also forgetting my keys, and so it's like mom brain. And I think a lot of you can relate to that. So I'm usually the last one out of the house, and I've noticed my son, because he's obviously fed off of my energy during this trip. I would say something as like little as, oh my gosh, we're going to be late. We're going to be late to this class. Oh, we're going to be late. We're going to see, dad's talk. And so I would say things like, we are going to be late because, okay, to rush them because we're taking forever to get out of the house and we wanted to be somewhere on time. And just even in that, now he's learned to say, Mom, are we going to be late? Oh my gosh. And then he'll start to have some anxiety around it. And so and now because I've caught it, right? You fine tune and you pay attention to the subtleties of what they are mirroring in you, because sometimes it's the things that, hey, you don't really enjoy about yourself, but they are your mirrors, right? And it's so beautiful. And then he asked, we were almost going to miss our train. We were in Lisbon going to Porto, and these European trains, and it was like a new train stop, and literally, and we didn't have any cash on us. The guy only took cash, our cab driver. And one ATM wasn't working. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, Ajay, we are literally going to miss this train. It was like 5 minutes. And then we had like a stroller, 5 backpacks, even though we were going to pack super small, and it was just the funniest situation because my kids had their scooters. But of course, for this reason, they said, Mama, I don't want to, I'm just going to run, you hold it. So here, I have a backpack in my backpack in my front, purse on the side of my right shoulder. I have one scooter in one hand, another scooter in another hand. Ajay has 2 of our carry-ons, like our roller carry-ons, plus 2 backpacks again. And we're trying to corral the kids. And of course, we get to the train literally 3 minutes before the train is coming. And, that would spike anybody's anxiety. But so later on that day, we were going to dinner, and, Ari asked, Mama, are we going to be late? And that was when I just kneeled down to him and I said, honey, no, we take as much time as we want. And it just clicked with me. And I said, all right, I know he may make a meaning of every time, or may think that every time mama is doing something, that it's going to spike either, anxiety in him, or he's going to start having this association. So I just sat with him and I spoke to him. I'm like, you know what? We're going to take as much time as we want, because not everything is time sensitive, and that we can take our time. And it was interesting the other day when we got back from Austin, he said, Mom, am I going to be late to camp? And I'm like, no, we're going to be way, way on time, way early. And so to start reframing that with him, and who knows, the verdict is still out. We're both learning. But I think to be able to, if you catch yourself where, the first part is that awareness, right? The first part is really recognizing that, ooh, can I do better? Could this have gone better? And how can I do things a little differently? Right? I'm no parenting expert by any means. I love to learn from all of the parenting experts that I've met either on this trip or that I have in our circles that I love to bring on, and that we try certain things. And I keep telling my kids, I'm like, you all are guinea pigs, because we get to learn all of these things that we are doing, and it's a constant evolution. And that's the thing. Attune to the needs of your kids at this season and stage. I know that in this season, Ari he is more emo, and I love it. And it's amazing and it's great. And now I can, because since the age of 2, he has been learning how to name his emotions, feel his emotions, express his emotions. We have our rage room. We have our time where we have our little dance parties where we can dance it out. We can scream. We have one of those karaoke mics where now they get a little too loud. But now everything we have a timer for. So with my daughter, on the other hand, she's my little spicy girl at the moment. She's that three-nager, and I know Ari had that stage too when he was 3, where everything, if it's not in her specific way or what she needs, or she feels like she can't do it, she wants to be able to do everything. She wants to be able to change her clothes by herself. She wants to be able to, so you want to be able to give them that autonomy because they're fighting for it. And I just remember recently, it was one of the things that she wanted to be able to do her hair herself. And I'm like, oh boy, how does this make me feel that, this hair is going to be not combed, it's going to just be, like a little puffy hair, and the bows are going to be in ever which way. But I was like, you know what? I remember sitting down, and my aunts and my Lola and my grandma and my mom, they would make sure that I would sit down and they would take the comb and split my hair down the middle. And it was so rough. And I remember hated every second of it. And I'm like, okay, I can heal my inner child by giving her what she actually needs. She wants autonomy. So, how does this make me feel that her hair's not going to be perfect? That it is going to be messy, that her bows are going to be in ever which way. If she lets me change them, fine. If not, but it's one little example that I got to give her the autonomy to do her own hair. And yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It wasn't how I would do it, but I respected it and I accepted it. And mamas, you know what that looks like, and you know what that's like. And I said, all right, c'est la vie. It's the same thing. Sometimes she wants to wear the same dress 3 days in a row, and she loves her Elsa dress, and that's what she'll wear. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to fight with her for it. I'm going to appreciate that she wants to build that skill. And that's where she is at this season and stage, because my son at 3, he was just like that. Now at 5, he has more language. He knows exactly what he wants and what he doesn't want. And he knows how to get his way when he wants the screens. My daughter is not so much about screens. I mean, as of yet, she loves to color and she loves to play with her dolls and she loves to, make their hair, etc. My son, because we don't allow it in the house, he knows that every time we are traveling that we have it. And so then it becomes this dopamine kind of spike, because then when we take it away, it becomes the biggest meltdown. And I see this now in memes on social media. And I know our kids are still young. And so we had to keep it fun. And so this is what I learned: everything needs to be fun and playful. So that is a given. That is a given. This kind of segues into the second thing that I wanted to bring up today, is how to really notice your children's personalities and foster their interests. Well, like I said, I did my fair share of playing with homeschooling. And so I ordered a bunch of these workbooks because I knew we were going to be on the road. And while they were in camp one of the weeks. I just knew that, and they were in camp one of the weeks in Estonia for Mind Valley University. But the other weeks I wanted to make sure that, they were just kind of filling some time. And some of these workbooks that I got were around financial literacy. So how to count, how to add, but also doing it in a fun way where they are learning about money. And it's something that I never had when I was young. And my husband is the same way. And so, and there was another one around geography. So they were able to real time know. We had a map of Portugal and we were showing them, okay, where were the places that we were actually going. And so this was really beautiful because not only was it connection based, we were building connection with one another. We didn't actually do any screen time for any of the 3 weeks except for when we were on airplanes, which is wild. Okay. For any parent that knows this, it is wild. And the secret is we were doing this challenge also that was 1,000 hours outside. And I read the book, 1,000 Hours Outside. I forget the name of the author, but I will link it below in the show notes. She is phenomenal. And she's really rearranged the way it was kind of a book club for the RE school. All the parents, had to read it. And I just fell in love with that approach. And also being in a very, very warm climate, you don't get to do these outdoor activities. And so we spent between 3 to 5 hours outside per day. And we were doing anywhere between 18 to 22,000 steps outside. And it's wild. It fully changed the way they were even observing things. They were showing me things about rocks that my kid's into now. He's into rocks and crickets and catching bugs and worms and all of those things. And of course, his little sister is also interested in those things, and she loves collecting flowers and loves seeing butterflies. So we were able to see all of these things being outside. And so it was easy while we were doing some of his workbooks. And we would do like 2 pages a day, but it was great because one of the pages was, we would do we did like a map of Portugal, we did a map of Estonia. So really being able to real time, unschool, but unlearn and real life school on the fly of what their bird is, what their temperature is, why was it a little bit colder where they needed to have jackets. But we could have these conversations, how to try 3 new foods a day. I got my daughter to be able to be open because there was a season where she was definitely doing a lot of food strikes and only liking certain, she was like my dal and rice girl, or beans, arroz and beans, frijoles, chiquita. And so we were able to play a game and get her to try and be exposed to new foods. So, and that was really, really helpful. We made it a game. So again, going back to everything needs to be fun and playful, that was huge. And even for Ari, we were able to see the both of them thrive while giving them a chance to go on stage. They were able to see their daddy on stage and go out on stage with dad, and even though there was like 800 people in the room. And it was fascinating because they were able to get a chance to do this last year when he was 4 and she was 2. And so just another year older, they did a whole dance. They were part of the Energizers. Energizers was a group that was, on stage dancing in between talks and energizing the energy of the room. And you can see that they were normalizing it. They weren't afraid. And coming back to how we get to reparent ourselves in the process, I remember there was a time where I was fearless to be on stage when I was doing ballet and performing. And when I got to middle school, or even when I was a little bit older, that all stopped. Then it was a fear of the microphone, fear of public speaking. And you should have seen, I mean, these kids were they were just living their best life, just being able to see other kids much older than them, maybe teenagers or tweens, but older kids also being able to dance and have fun and, normalize the fact that this is a stage and there's almost 800 people in the room and not really caring what anybody thinks. And when we get to heal parts of ourselves where we're giving that opportunity to our kids, that's the best healing that we can do for us. And I want to get into this third point that I want to bring up today: how to heal your inner child during the most chaotic and stressful moments. Whether you are listening or watching this on YouTube and you have children or not, I think it's safe to say that even in the presence of young children, we had a lot of aunties and uncles, or a lot of our single friends were with us. And the way that they would play in the face of seeing these 2 kids, I mean, it just brought out the most giddy, unapologetic, untainted love and pure joy, because it wasn't about, all right, having to keep things together or having to have the perfect answer or having to have the most thoughtful thing to say. It was just being present in the moment. And it really gave permission to all of us to do the same. And it also lessened any sort of tension in the room. Why? Because the kids are going to do some silly things. And we all know, if you've ever been to Europe and you're taking kids to Europe, you're not going to have a fine dining experience. They're going to be running around. And I know that our kids are very different from some of the other, maybe well behaved, air quotes, kids who don't do any of those things. And we weren't giving them screens either. So I had a couple of different things that I would always carry, which was coloring books, coloring pencils, coloring pads. I had a fidget like workbook that I got from Amazon, which was great. It had felt on it, it had puzzles, and I had so many different compliments from people that were just asking, oh my gosh, I want to get this for my grandkid. I want to get this for my niece. Where'd you get this? And they were so amazed that we didn't have to use screens for the kids inside of the restaurants. And I'm not saying that they were because some people wouldn't really agree with this parenting style, that we were just able to let them run around, go outside. There was grassy areas everywhere we went most of the time, or little like plazas, piazzas, kind of a setup. And to be able to release that pressure that, oh, we're not supposed to be going to dinner because our kids can't sit properly and behave. If I were to take my elders with us, they probably would not even enjoy it, not the littlest bit, because they have their own programming. And we've done that a few times and it just causes chaos. And so, but for us, it works. And so to be able to see that childlike glow, and maybe because we weren't able to ever do that growing up. So I'm feeling some of those things in myself, but to be able, if you are able to allow yourself to be in that childlike awe and wonder and play, and not take everything so seriously, because children make things a little more chaotic, but to be in the flow in the moment. And that's what was so beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that they were at our very adult birthday soiree. We had a themed dress up that we were doing, dress it as in your future self. So Isla dressed up as Wonder Woman. Ari dressed up as a race car driver slash futuristic race car driver astronaut, I would say. And we all loved it. I mean, who loves that's why people love Halloween, right? We get to dress up in different versions of ourselves and make those parts of ourselves come alive. And so, all in all, I want to bring this back to when we are parenting in this way and when we are reparenting ourselves, we're teaching ourselves about the ability to have permission to let go and to expose maybe a different side of ourselves that was dormant for a while. And it was interesting because it would only come out in certain people and certain friendships where our friends or the aunties and uncles weren't used to either being around kids, or maybe they had nieces and nephews, so they were a little bit more apt to it. But check in with yourself. Do you allow yourself to play like a little kid, giggle, and just have fun without caring who's watching, even if you're in a uppity restaurant? And some of you might say, well, Neeta, we don't want to disrespect or disturb the noise. I mean, hey, we were in Europe, and so we were willing to take that chance. Good thing we weren't kicked out of any restaurants. Although it was close, we were really close. So, what they learned in this is we were teaching them also about consequences. And the biggest thing that I learned is how to let them tolerate discomfort, because discomfort is one of the most valuable lessons as our children are growing up in an era of screens, in an era of everything is so quick, everything is so fast. You need to order groceries, obviously it's within the click of a button. You have ample amount of content to watch at any given point of time. And so to be able to teach discomfort tolerance is So huge. And we were able to kind of model this along and during our trip because it's also modeling that discomfort for us. We missed one of our connecting flights and we ended up spending about 7 hours hoping, crossing our fingers and hoping that we would be standby for the next few flights. Guess what? They never call our names. And it was a struggle. And you could see my kids didn't really understand it. And of course, there was a lot of patience being tested. We hadn't slept the night before. We're coming from a long haul flight, et cetera, et cetera. And it was beautiful to see how we could, again, make everything playful. So we were playing with some paper napkins, and I got a pen because at this point we ran out of coloring pads. And of course, they were getting bored of doing the same kinds of activities. They didn't want their screens, they just wanted to go home. And like Mama and Dada, we also wanted to get home. And we've all been there. Nothing teaches you patience more than having either missed your flight or having flight connection delays or having lost your bags or any of those things. It brings it back to the that sucked now what moment. And so I literally recorded a video of us, having pizza at the end of the night because all of the restaurants were closed. The airport restaurants were closing up, and we knew we weren't going to get on that flight that day. And after 8 hours, really hoping, we're like, okay, let's just get something to eat. And literally, I recorded a video of myself saying, that sucked. Now what? And we were having pizza and we brought it back to gratitude. And because I can hear my son, he's of course expressing his feelings and emotions, and he's not very happy. He's getting into the whiny bits. And we're like, all right, we're going to just reframe this like, and literally I was like, all right, we're gonna go around the table and we're gonna just like, what are we grateful for? Let's bring it back to gratitude. And Isla was the first one to go, but to be able to then reframe that, and it was super hard. Of course, you're like, I just want to get home, and I'm cranky, and I'm annoyed, and I'm just like haven't slept. But we were able to bring it back to that frequency, and to be able to allow yourself that reflection time to see and appreciate what needs were you not given, or how triggers, when the triggers come up, either your kids aren't listening to you, or your spouse isn't listening to you, or you're just cranky, you're in a funk. How do you, and perhaps maybe it brings you back to how you were parented, right? I know my family, it was like, all right, if you don't stop this right now, if you don't stop this whining, I am going to smack you across the face, or I'm going to give you one tupper, or take my slippers out, or whatever, the belt. And yeah, we joke around about it, but that was how we were raised. It was like, and there are memes out there, give them to the Asian parents. We'll see. You wouldn't do this over there. It's like, that was a threat that I had. You wouldn't do this if you're back in the Philippines or India. And so, but how can we allow the feelings to be expressed in a humble container where, yep, I get it, you're frustrated. What does this say about me as a parent? And how do we then alchemize it? How do we then change it? How do we then shift it? Because the more we are okay with discomfort, the more we are okay with tolerating discomfort or being uncomfortable during those really icky moments, during those sucky moments, how can we then repair that and not pass that generational trauma down to our kids? Because then they have all of the tools. They can scream, shout, fight in a container that's safe, and allow themselves to fully express without judgment. Allow themselves to fully express without judgment. Allow themselves to share their emotion where they're not going to be judged, and where you as the parent aren't only going to accept them for being well behaved. Because then we then train children to only come to you when things are going well, instead of when they actually need your support. And so I saw this, and it was so beautiful to, when you have your kind of blinders off and you have your headlights on and you're actually looking for those gems and you're looking for those diamonds in the dust. And I was able to see it. Like, oh yeah, that's another good one. This is a great one. So I would love to remind you this week, how are you having that reflection time to see how you can reparent yourselves? Because many times, even if you don't have kids, you're seeing this in the relationships that you have with the closest people in your life, which is your friendships, which is your personal relationships, which is the relationships that you have with your elders, the relationships that you have with maybe your significant others, and how can you reframe that? How can you shift that? So, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, this is our final week that we are giving away some amazing prizes. We are giving away an iPad. We are giving away AirPods. We are giving away That's Like Now What merch. We are giving away some of these beautiful That's Like Now What cards, conversation cards, and affirmation cards. And these are amazing to spark any meaningful discussion, dialogue, conversation, and to really get to know you and to really spark that healing within you. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please consider following us, subscribing so that you don't miss out on when we are doing things next. And I will see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in.